Hurricane Delta has rapidly intensified into a Category 4 storm, with winds increasing threefold in under 24 hours. Alabama declared a state of emergency on Tuesday. But the storm is likely to hit Cancun the hardest. Mexico is expecting a direct hit overnight. Water levels could rise by 9 feet over normal tide levels in some areas. The U.S. National Hurricane Center has called this storm life-threatening and extremely dangerous. For more on this, I want to bring in CBS News meteorologist and climate specialist Jeff Berardelli. Jeff, thanks very much for joining us. Where is Hurricane Delta right now, and where is it headed?
All right, so the storm is located across the Caribbean, and it's going to make landfall in Cancun and Cozumel tomorrow morning. Now, the folks in Cancun and Cozumel, and if you're watching us right now from there, you've been hit by hurricanes. But I have to tell you, when we talk about life-threatening, the National Hurricane Center mentions the words life-threatening. They do that often enough with large storms. But I can tell you this, if you're watching from there right now, you've likely never experienced a hurricane this strong before in your life. So take it seriously, because this is going to be a deadly storm, unfortunately, in some cases, and it is going to be catastrophic in terms of the amount of damage it causes. Just fair warning there, take this seriously. All right, taking a look at the storm right now, you can see it's located way to the south of Florida. So there's Tampa, there's Miami. This is Cancun and Cozumel. Now notice over the past couple of frames that the storm starts to become a little more circular, a little more textbook. You can see the eye, very small eye, but penetrating a little bit more. That means the storm is actually starting to strengthen once again. Winds are 145 miles an hour. It's forecast to make landfall with winds of 155, right on the cusp of a Cat 5. So it is very possible, maybe even probable, it will get to Category 5 status, the strongest of storms. As we zoom in, you can clearly see how the wind field is expanding. You can see that this eye is becoming a little bit more clear. That's characteristic of a storm that is stronger. This is the official forecast track from the National Hurricane Center. 155-mile-an-hour winds making landfall early tomorrow morning around sunrise. Cancun, Cozumel, somewhere in that zone, then weakening as it moves over the Yucatan. However, watch what happens over the Gulf of Mexico. It re-strengthens to a Category 4 once again with winds of 130 miles an hour, and it kind of swings west and then swings back north, and look at where it is going to make landfall. In Louisiana once again. We've seen a lot of storms this year in Louisiana. And this one could be Morgan City, could be Cameron. This will be Friday night. It could be a Cat 3, maybe a borderline Cat 4. And what that means is the possibility, once again, of storm surge 10 to 15 plus feet. And obviously wind gusts over 130 miles an hour. So once again, this is going to be a very damaging storm. The computer models, so all these lines that you see, all different computer models. Some are as far west as Cameron, some are right over Morgan City, a couple almost New Orleans. So anywhere from New Orleans west to around Cameron, Louisiana, maybe Beaumont, is where the bullseye for this storm is going to be. And again, it's still going to be a major hurricane when it makes landfall in Louisiana on Friday night and early Saturday.
Well, Jeff, you published an article on CBSNews.com comparing this storm to Hurricane Wilma in 2005. What similarities are you seeing, and why might those be cause for concern?
So the comparison, the similarities, extraordinary, forming in the exact same place, over the same body of what is the warmest water in our hemisphere, the hottest water in our hemisphere. And the eyes of these storms are both pinhole eyes, the smallest eyes that we've ever seen in the Atlantic Ocean, and both happening in October with very similar setups in the atmosphere. There are a lot of uncanny similarities. So first of all, this storm is shattering records. Delta intensification has been a 110-mile-an-hour jump in 36 hours. It is the fastest storm to ever go from a depression to a Category 4 storm, very in line with the other things that have been happening in 2020 and in terms of the tropics as well. And Delta is 6 weeks ahead of record pace as the 25th storm of the 2020 season. So we are 6 weeks ahead of record pace. The record 2005-28 storms were at 25. We could shatter that record also. So take a look. This is a satellite photo of Wilma back in 2005. The eye of this storm only 2.5 miles wide. Now, Delta's eye is 4 miles wide, and an EF5 tornado, a tornado, is 2 miles wide. So this is like a very large tornado, and the damage is going to be like a buzzsaw, kind of like tornado damage as it moves across the Yucatan, unfortunately. The tighter the eye is, the shorter it is, the smaller it is, it's almost like an ice skater bringing his or her arms in close to their body. It spins faster and faster. That's why small eyes tend to produce stronger winds. One more thing I want to show you. This is called ocean heat content. So it's not just a measure of the heat on the surface. It's also a measure of heat at depth. You go further and further deeper into the water column. Well, look at where all the ocean heat content is. There is a bullseye, and it's nowhere else in the Atlantic. It is right where Delta is right now and right where Wilma formed in 2005 as well. That's why this storm has high octane fuel, and that's why it's such a dangerous storm.
2020 just will not stop. All right, Jeff, let me ask you, how much of a factor is climate change when it comes to the intensity of the storm?
Yeah, you cannot ignore that whatsoever. So first of all, rapid intensification. So what we're seeing, these storms that are, increasing wind speeds by 80, 90 miles an hour in 24 to 36 hours, this one even more than that. That's called rapid intensification. It's 2 to 3 times the speed of the definition of rapid intensification. Climate change has caused that to increase over the past 4 decades or so. I'll show you some stats here. We'll let this read out for you. So rapid intensification has increased by 3 to 4 miles an hour per decade since the 1980s. So what does that mean? Well, so if a storm spiked 35 miles an hour in 24 hours back in 1980, that means today that spike would be 50 miles an hour. So if a storm had 100-mile-an-hour winds in 1980, it jumped to 135. Today, it would go from 100 to 150 miles an hour. That's because of the warmer water. Atlantic Ocean temperatures have warmed by 2 degrees Fahrenheit since 1900 or so. And right now, it is 2 times as likely than in 1980 for a storm to be at major intensity. So if you look at the records, today it's twice as likely that a storm would be at major Cat 3, Cat 4, Cat 5 than it would have been back around 1980. To give you an idea of how fast things are changing, the reason why that matters is because major hurricanes, Cat 3s, Cat 4s, and Cat 5s, cause 85% of the damage. So this is significant, and we're only getting started here because climate change is going to be baking in heat in the oceans more and more for at least the next few decades unless we completely stop burning fossil fuels and releasing carbon dioxide into the atmosphere almost immediately. We're pretty much for sure going to see another, probably 1 or 2 degrees at least of ocean heat over the next few decades or so. It's really going to be hard to get away from that.
It's a sobering picture when you look at the data and where things have gone over the years. All right, Jeff Berardelli for us. Jeff, thank you very much.
You're welcome.